Welcome back to another episode of me, J Films, J Stuff. So I just saw Saw 10, Saw X, and it got me thinking, what's up with this new trend of making horror villains like protagonists? Should I feel bad for them? What's going on? It's a tricky subject to navigate for sure. Something that was really brought to my attention when, Dead Meat that makes the kill count videos, they were covering Don't Breathe 2, and they said, I can't get behind the fact that we're supposed to root for this guy that did some horrible stuff. And that's a pretty valid criticism. I don't want to force anyone to root for anyone, okay? And I don't want to be forced to root for anyone. No one's gonna do that to me. No one's gonna force me. It's all opinion. So then I saw Saw X. Very minor spoilers for Saw X. Very minor. So minor that frickin' Chris Hansen people would be after them. That's how minor these ones are. In Saw X, we are rooting for John Kramer. He is someone who has done a lot of horrible things. Yeah, he doesn't technically kill anyone, but he does, okay? He puts them in these traps where this guy has to cut out a chunk of his brain like it's freaking operation and throw it in a little cup of soda water or something like that. I don't know what's going on. I wasn't paying attention. First of all, I think the easiest thing to do is to say, I think that you can root for whoever you want. And I think that obviously what we as an audience, how we interpret these characters, that is very much on the individual. Some audiences are gonna say, hey, John Kramer, if that's what I'm rooting for, that's what I'm rooting for, okay? Guy from Don't Breathe 2, if I'm rooting for you, I'm rooting for you. I think that there are a few things that are important, and I think some of these movies do it pretty well. I think if you're going to make us root for someone who has done some pretty horrible stuff, the first thing you have to do is make your villain so much worse. I think Saw X is an example of that. I don't know if they're worse than John Kramer, but they do a great job of giving you some villains who you absolutely despise. You don't feel bad for them at all. When they got to go through these traps, you're like, good. Maybe you deserve it. I'm just saying. The worst of the worst will be the people that we root against. And just because we are rooting against some bad people, it doesn't necessarily mean that we condone the actions of our protagonist who has done bad stuff in the past, or they're going to do some really bad stuff in the future. Probably both. So then that takes us to Don't Breathe 2. If you haven't seen this movie, you pretty much have this guy who is the killer of the first film, and he does some pretty horrible stuff. He does some bad juju, man. You don't want to, not a good guy. But then in the second film, he takes on this parental role to this little girl, and some people are coming after her. They're trying to kill her. They're trying to harvest her organs or something like that, some wild thing. The film kind of puts this man in a position to be rooted for as he saves this little girl. And the interesting thing here is that we are rooting for the action of him saving this girl and not particularly him. When I watched that movie, I was rooting for him, but that's because I wanted him to accomplish his mission of saving this girl, a girl who did absolutely nothing wrong. She didn't do all the bad stuff that he did. And I think that rooting for an action is different from, again, rooting for a character and condoning the things that he's done. Because if we are going off of just what has been done morally, we're never going to root for this guy. Even if the people who he is going against, even if they're bad. And I think that that's one thing that Don't Breathe 2 did really well. The other thing, and I think, again, this is important, is to not condone the actions, to not just forgive them. And I think a very important thing is to show how the actions have affected the character, and if they feel bad for them. But again, feeling bad's not just that's not going to undo all of the bad things they've done. They're still freaking a bad person. But we can always root for people changing. We can always root for people, again, not absolving what they've done, but changing their path and saying, hey, this time I'm gonna do something good. I think it actually makes them more interesting characters, in my opinion. And just because I say they're an interesting character, it doesn't mean that I like them. I think I want to go get brunch with them, I want to go bowling with them. Some of the most interesting characters in film that I can think of are not good people. And oftentimes it is these moral gray areas that makes them interesting. What do you think about horror villains evil villains, all that stuff, turning into protagonists, into quote-unquote good guys. People were not rooting for. Oh, tricked you. We're rooting for maybe their actions or their goal. I don't know. This is confusing. New videos every day. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Thanks for watching. New video tomorrow. Check it out. Bye.